on this episode of The Breakthrough Show. We're excited to welcome a unique instrumentalist to the show, hammered dulcimer musician Ted Yoder. Ted shares the story of how he came to play such a rare instrument, and we also share a fun conversation about how a viral Facebook video led to a second video and friendship with the band Tears for Fears. Don't miss his performance of a certain viral song and another original. We're also talking to intuitive artist, journalist, and multi-passionate entrepreneur Michelle Charmaine Ramos. In our chat, Michelle shares candidly about how important it has been for her as a creative entrepreneur to learn boundaries. She'll leave you with real-life tips you can begin to use today in both your business and personal lives. All this and more coming up on today's episode.
Life gives us moments when we have the opportunity to make a choice, and what we choose has the potential to change our lives forever. Join us now for another inspired episode of The Breakthrough. And now, please welcome the creator and host of the show, Jessica Dugas.
Welcome back to The Breakthrough Show. I'm your host, Jessica Dugas, and I'm super excited to be with you today for another incredible episode. I am pumped for today's episode, you guys, because it has been a long time coming, and I'm really excited to be sitting down with two individuals who are doing amazing things in the world in their own rights. Coming up later on the show, I have my friend Michelle Ramos, who is a multi-passionate entrepreneur. She's an artist. She's been a TV and radio host, and she's going to be sharing about the importance of boundaries as a creative entrepreneur. And I'm really excited to dig into that topic with her. But first up on the show, our guest today did a cover of Tears for Fears that had over 101 million views on Facebook in 2016. He's a family man. He's an incredible musician, and he's an award-winning hammered dulcimer player. So please welcome to the show for the first time, Ted Yoder. Ted, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I'm super, and I love your friends you brought in the background there too.
These are my streaming buddies.
You have a built-in audience. I love it. Well, to start us out on the show, we have a tradition of sharing what is something that's bringing you joy in your life today, Ted.
Actually, today, after this interview, I get to take my middle son to an NBA basketball game for his birthday. And so that is going to be exciting.
Awesome. I love getting to do things with our kids and sharing experiences with them, because it's not just you experiencing it. You kind of get to experience their joy as well. And doing that too. Is that fun for you as well?
Absolutely. Yep. Nothing like a family trip or taking the family on tour with me. That's a great joy, because it's just, I love the road, but I love it even more when my family gets to go with me.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I don't think I would want to, if I ever bring the show on the road or anything, I don't think I would want to do it alone. I would absolutely want to have my family along with me for the ride too. So listen, I was thinking about this, and I remember back in school when they were saying like, what instrument do you want to play? And I had already been playing the piano, and I ended up picking up the clarinet and as well as some other instruments. And I was sang and all of that. Not once did anybody ever say to me, hey, Jessica, would you like to play the hammered dulcimer?
Right.
So how did that happen, Ted?
Yeah, so that's it's a long story. I'll try not to make it too long. Basically, I grew up playing piano, and in the 80s, I heard this artist by the name of Rich Mullins play the hammered dulcimer on a CD. Well, probably back then it was on cassette, but anyway, I was a big fan of his, and once I saw him play it in concert, I thought it was a keyboard at the time, on the album, and then I saw it in concert, and I was like just totally mesmerized about this weird trapezoid-looking instrument that he was swinging little hammers and hitting, and I was just like, this is phenomenal. It took me forever to find one, though. I didn't realize that it was really kind of in my backyard up in Michigan. I live in northern Indiana, and I guess Michigan's a really hot spot for hammered dulcimers.
Oh.
But I have never seen anybody else in the 80s or 90s ever play the hammered dulcimer other than Rich Mullins. So my wife and I, we got married in 97, moved down to Arkansas, and she took some wedding gift money that we had left over and found a little shop up in the mountains that had a hammered dulcimer for sale and bought me one. And that's where it all started.
Wow.
You know, there was we lived in this little four room apartment, you know, just this little square, and we were still eating off of a card table and we didn't even have a mattress yet. So we were sleeping on blankets on the floor. And instead of buying stuff for her house, she decided to buy me a hammered dulcimer. So that's where it all started.
Oh my gosh. And I've seen your wife in some of your videos, and if there was anybody, I would imagine like buying an instrument for her husband instead of making up her house. It just seems like that's her energy, very loving and giving and all of that as well. So I want to shout out to your beautiful wife as well, because I know that she does a lot behind the scenes for you.
Yes.
And that's part of what I loved in reading your bio, but also in getting to see a lot of your videos and follow some of your story, is how involved you are with your family and making it this whole journey that you're on a family affair. That's something that's really important to you.
Yes, very much so. And it was even cool, you know, not to jump too far ahead in where you want to take this, but a behind the scenes really cool part of the viral video was the fact that my family was there listening to me play the song for the first time. And so it wasn't just something that Dad did and it went viral and it's good for his business and that kind of stuff. The family was involved in it.
I would think that playing an instrument that is so not well known and also unique in itself is enough to have people interested on social media. But then you had to go and play a song it was one of my favorite songs from back then, and I just love it so much. And how did that happen? That did you just it's a favorite song of yours and you played it and then somebody saw it and that was it? How did that all happen?
A friend of mine had suggested that song that I learned to play it like 2 years before before 2016, before it went viral. And I just kind of had it in my back pocket. Now I would kind of mess with it a little bit and just didn't really feel like it was going anywhere. So it was sitting in the back of my mind for a couple of years. And then the story of that day or that week before it happened was I had went live on Facebook for the first time because Facebook Live had just come out, and I had went live the previous week to my little audience of like 100 people, and like 7 of them showed up to watch me on this new platform.
Not for long.
And I just played. Yeah, I know. Small beginnings. And so my wife asked me, you know, the next week if I was going to go live again. I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, you know, 7 people showed up. It probably wasn't that big of a deal, you know. She said, you should do it. Just do it one more time. I said, okay, fine. So at the time I was working a part-time at a soup kitchen here in my town. And so I had to go to work in the morning. And so I decided to just kind of work on the song a little bit. And then I was going to come home and go live on Facebook. And so that morning, just like within an hour, the song just kind of took shape, came together. And I said, okay, I think I can do this, you know. And so that was kind of the precursor to it all. You know, I never expected anything like what happened, anything that remotely, I couldn't have ever imagined it, to the effect that, you know, the first time I went live on Facebook, 3 days later, I had 47 views. The second time I went live on Facebook, played this song, 3 days later, I had 54 million views. That was just insane. And so it just, you know, I had mistakes and all in there, but that's the kind of the joy of Facebook Live is you're just sharing humanity with everybody. And it doesn't matter if it has a dog barking or traffic in the background or something like that. And they come there for the joy of music and being together.
So did you send it to Tears for Fears? Did somebody send it to them, or they just saw it accidentally?
I think, I mean, again, with all, we had emails and messages and Twitter PMs and all this kind of stuff happening. And I didn't seek them out at all, because I'm not the type of guy that goes and follows my, famous people, artists or actors. I just don't. So I woke up one morning, I think it was Friday. We filmed it on Wednesday. And so I woke up Friday and people were like messaging me on all kinds of platforms. Hey, idiot, Kurt Smith is trying to get a hold of you on Twitter. And, but I wasn't following him, so he couldn't PM me directly. So I had to follow him first, and then he could send me a message.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, who? who's trying to get a hold of me? And so then at about that same time, I had an email from his drummer, Jamie Woolham. And when I first got the email, I saw that first before the PM from Kurt. And so I did some research just to make sure this was the Jamie Woolham. I kind of, what do they call it, stalked him a little bit here on socials and stuff. And I was like, okay. So I emailed back and said, are you really Jamie? And so, yeah, they both got a hold of me at the same time and just said, we were so happy with what you're doing. That was fantastic. They loved it. And just congratulated me. Then they offered my wife and I a couple of tickets to a concert they were having a couple months later down in Indianapolis.
Very nice. And then they came and hung out.
Yes. So of course,
is there enough cleaning that you can do to prepare for like a celebrity coming? I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh, I would probably hire people to
So we went to the concert in Indy, and I was actually doing a special appearance in Oklahoma City the day of the concert. So I had to go there and do it in the morning and then fly back to Indy to make the concert. And so they gave us backstage passes. We went back and met the band. And so we're just kind of sitting around talking, and Kurt says, well, we have a gig in Cleveland in a couple days, but we have tomorrow off. We were wondering if we could like take the day off and drive up to your place and meet the family and meet the raccoon. We had a pet raccoon at the time. And so Kurt was all enamored with this pet raccoon. So he wanted to come meet Gidget. And in fact, in the video, he had one part where he goes, I'm just here for the raccoon, And so a fan of ours actually drew a shirt that said, I'm just here for the raccoon.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, so so yeah, we spent the night in Indy, drove back up here, told the kids, guess who's coming for dinner, kind of a thing, And
I love it.
So they drove up here, and we got donuts and coffee and just hung outside for in the orchard. They stayed here for about 4 hours and hung with the kids and met the pets, and then and at one point, I tried to get them to play the hammered dulcimer, and Kurt wouldn't touch it. He said 4 strings are enough for me.
Yeah.
But Jamie was messing around on it, and and then at some point Kurt said, you know what? Let's go live. Let's work up a version real quick of Rule the World, and let's just do it live together. And let's make another viral video, in other words. And I said, okay. And so we ran through the song like twice, and then we hit go live and did it again. And so yeah, that's happened.
Incredible.
I don't know, meeting Kurt and Jamie, even though we got to see them on stage perform, and they're in their element, and then we meet them backstage and they're just regular people.
Yeah.
They just happened to be part of a band called Tears for Fears. They came and they talked to my kids as much as they did me and Donna, and interacted with them and just hung out. And, it's not, I think it's mostly in the movies and maybe in the press only that artists are portrayed as this otherworldly being that won't bend down and talk to the lowly
Right.
man, if you will,
Right.
So, that in itself was just, those two individuals are just very real people. So that, I mean, they put you at ease. And I didn't, I mean, at one point, then, what was she, 14? Probably 14. My 14-year-old daughter, she kind of walks up to me at some point and whispered in my ear, "Okay, I'm just really, really fangirling right now."
I love it though. And that's one thing I was going to ask you. Like, when you have those experiences, do you continue to lean on kind of the energy of that moving forward, or do you kind of allow yourself to just get back to normal life, if you will?
That's a good question. I think, I want to say a year and a half after that happened, it was just gangbusters. I mean, we got hired by Busch Gardens down in Florida, and so we got an Airbnb for 2 months.
Wow.
And basically moved down to Florida for 2 months. Right after that, I had a destination wedding in Brazil on an island. So there were some amazing mountaintop experiences that happened, that we were living off of. Not to mention just, being friends with Jamie and Kurt and all that. And then just having your fan base grow exponentially overnight. That was really big too. It took probably 2 years afterwards to actually feel like things settled down, as far as just the forward momentum of that. People still celebrated it every time it came around. Every time it hits, what was it, August 28th or something like that. It starts bringing up in people's Facebook feeds and stuff like that. And so they're all like, "Oh my gosh, remember this?"
Yeah.
And of course, I still play it every time I go live on Facebook too, because everybody wants to hear it.
Yeah.
I think 2 years after everything was when it finally was just like, okay, this is kind of business as usual. Now we get to go back and just, put our nose to the grindstone, and sometimes play for 20 people, sometimes play for 200, 2,000, just depends.
Yeah. So not to, be that fangirl, but I'm going to need you to play that song, Ted.
I can do that.
All right, you guys, here to perform Tears for Fears, Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Here is Ted Yoder on the hammered dulcimer. Yes, amazing. I feel like I was there with you. I was not, but I was there with you. Oh, it was beautiful. It's so fascinating to me how that particular instrument sounds like so many at one time, and it is the coolest experience to listen to it. That was beautiful. I would love for you to hang out and come back at the end of the show and do another for us, will you?
I will do.
All right, you guys, we're going to take a quick break and talk to Michelle Ramos, and we'll be back at the end more with Ted Yoder. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Brandon, and over the past year, the Delight Cafe team and I have traveled across the U.S. researching this rapidly growing industry of CBD products. What we have found throughout the industry were products that were inconsistent in dosage and used ingredients that weren't even lab tested. Products with chalky textures, bitter aftertaste, and worst of all, confusion among the CBD consumers. That's why we created Delight Cafe. A 15 milligram, lab-tested, all-natural, water-soluble hemp CBD powder pack. It's odorless, colorless, and tasteless. Add it to your favorite drink of choice, wherever, whenever, on the go. Quickly find your calm, your balance, and your delight when you need it most.
Welcome back to the Breakthrough Show. You know, one of the most important, I think, entrepreneurial lessons that we can talk about is in boundaries, and boundaries in people, the people that we surround ourselves with, boundaries with our time, boundaries with activities. What are we doing and where are we putting our energy? And it can be even more of a big topic for creatives. And because I think we can tend to be a little all over the place and wanting to do all of the things. And it's no surprise today that we have yet another guest on the show who is as multi-passionate, if not more, than me. We know that I tend to attract that to the show, and it's amazing. And so my guest today has been an artist. She's been a TV radio host covering all kinds of inspirational stories, and she's into lots of things, definitely in that creative category. Please welcome intuitive artist and multimedia journalist Michelle Charmaine Ramos to the show. Welcome, Michelle.
Hey, Jessica. Thanks for having me. How are you feeling? How are you doing today?
I'm good. I would love for you to start out, Michelle, by sharing with our audience something that's bringing you joy in your life today.
Oh, okay. Actually, it started this weekend, just this past weekend. Somebody created a WhatsApp group for a lot of my old childhood friends who I went to school with when I was in grade 7 and all the way up to high school. So that was great. And we've been catching up. I've been waking up to like 100 messages in that group because there are like 72 of us there so far. And I think they're adding more people in there. And it's just nice to reconnect with people from before you had to do any adult stuff and before everyone grew up. And it's just nice to just remind yourselves of that sense of innocence of when you just had carefree days playing and reconnecting with people for the sake of reconnecting with them, with no other I guess agendas when it comes to career connections or networking or anything to do with business. And
Yeah,
it's just nice. It's just pure friendship.
I love that. And I tend to be a very nostalgic person. So I love reconnecting with someone like that and, remembering old things or times that we had together or things that we did together. And it's a lot of fun and lots of fun though. So I know you are into all the things. Do you want to list everything that you love to do?
How many hours do we have?
No, I'm the same way though. And I think sometimes people look at me and say, how could you be just as passionate about these 12 things as you are about those 20 things? And I just am, and it's fun and it's amazing. Are you that way too, where you just love a lot of things?
Oh yeah, totally. Do you find that a lot of your interests kind of intersect as well?
Yeah.
Like you're doing the podcasting, but at the same time, what you're doing requires a lot of creativity because you're also writing, you're also planning your episodes and connecting with so many different people you're interviewing.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing it must be the same for you, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing this podcast.
Yes. And it's also alone time. because I'm a mom. And so it's also, it serves that as well. It serves as like, this is mommy's thing, that I do. And so it's nice to have something that's just for me as well. And I think it serves that.
And that is really related to the topic we're talking about today, because like you said, you got to take your time alone for your own self-care, for your own sanity,
Yeah.
doing something that you love. And that's
Yeah.
very, very important when it comes to recharging your batteries too.
Yeah.
I used to get burnt out without realizing that I was actually getting burnt out, because I saw nothing wrong with working sometimes days straight without sleep, as long as the job, got done, because I loved what I was doing. I just
Mhm.
loved it. So I didn't see anything wrong with it. To me, it was kind of like a game. Okay. So if a task would come up, the only thing I cared about was, hey, is this doable? Is this physically doable? And that was it. And then it's like, challenge accepted, done. And then that went on, right? And sometimes I would bring work home with me, or stay in the office until like 2 a.m. And then the one time I had a break, okay, first breakthrough or mini breakthrough was when I ended up working years ago. I was working at this office where I was doing some design work, and I ended up staying there until 5 a.m. I actually, for some reason, did not mind, because I was just in the zone, loving what I was doing. I was like, this is going to be done. It's going to be perfect. I'm going to submit this, and it's going to be awesome. So it was done. And then I just went home to shower, have breakfast real quick, and went back to work that same morning. And then when I got there, my boss was like, Michelle, can you come in my office for a sec? I was like, yeah. I was like, hey, so how was it? And then she was like, I noticed the timestamp on your email, and you were here until 5 a.m. I'm like, yeah, yeah. I wanted to make sure that everything was working and there were no technical glitches and everything. And then they said, well, that's not good for your health, but thank you. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm pretty cool with that. And I was like, I didn't really see the stress it had on my body, because I was just happy, because I was just focused on getting stuff done. And again, that happened. And then that happened on a few more occasions. And then they pulled me aside and said, hey, you should not be coming in on your days off, because that, had we known that it would be that we were putting so much work on you,
Right.
had we known that it was going to be taking this much time, we would have just figured out something else, because this wouldn't be fair. This wouldn't be fair to you. But again, if it's like some creative work and I'm in the zone and I love what I'm doing, I actually didn't mind, because to me it was like a challenge and a challenge. And I'm like, okay, done, crush this, crush that, done, right? And then they said, you know what? It's not good for your health. And you should have a work-life balance where your work or your work time does not invade your personal time outside of work, because you got to take time for yourself too. And then I was like, okay. I appreciated that. God bless them. I really appreciate that they thought of that.
Yeah.
But it didn't really sink in until years later, when I noticed the same pattern, when I would just get so lost in my work. And I started asking myself why I felt the need to not back down when it came to certain tasks. And I realized, again, speaking with a lot of my old high school friends, because we were in the same drills where we were just trained to go through anything. If you can't go around it, go push through it, under it, or whatever, right? And then we were catching up, and then we realized, hey, you know what? We think, that training actually, while that training was good when it came to our stress tolerance, it didn't really do much for us in terms of knowing when to set the boundaries to avoid burnout. And they're like, maybe when I thought about it, I realized that maybe I had pinned my sense of identity or sense of accomplishment or worth on how much I could accomplish, or
Right.
how far I can go.
Do you think it was your Do you think it was your own expectations for yourself, or were there what people refer to as people pleasing tendencies in there as well? Were you trying to please other people, or was it yourself, or a combination of both?
Oh my gosh, it was a mix of both. I think it was a mix of both because as a creative person, I take pride in what I create. So
Right.
there's the part of me that wants it to be perfect, but logically, it's like logically, you know, that's never going to happen because there's no such thing as perfection. So you go as far as you can. But on the other hand, it's also like there was a part of me that did not want to disappoint in case I fell short, in
Right.
case what I created fell short, because that would reflect on me as an artist.
Right.
So the thing I learned there was that, you know, there is a belief you have to overcome when it comes to this false belief that you have to crush when it comes to avoiding perfectionism, because you have to realize that there are things, no matter how much you put in to do your best, there are things that are in your control. There are things within your influence, and there are things that are way out of your control. And the key to finding peace in your decisions and the course of action you take depends on knowing the difference between those three things. What's in your control, what's within your influence, and what's completely out of your control. So once you've given it your all with the knowledge and your capabilities at that point in time, you can just sit back and rest and say, I done the best I could with what I had, and it is what it is.
Right. How do you keep yourself? Because I know that once you get in that habit of wanting to be the one in control 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and kind of working yourself to death, trying to perfect everything. How do you keep yourself from slipping back into that space now when you work?
I just remind myself that there are certain things that I'm in control of, and again, things that are out of my control, and that's the reality I have to face. And also, I also realize that another thing we have to remind ourselves, as people and also as creatives, is that our time on this earth literally is finite. So is our energy. So
Mhm.
imagine, if you imagine your life as this straight line right here. Here you are, this is the time, like let's say this is the time you're born, this is the time you're gonna croak, there's the deadline. And you only have limited resources in terms of time and energy.
Right.
So the question you got to ask yourself is, are you spending it on the right things, on the things that matter and the people that matter? Because the biggest thing, the biggest gift you can give anyone, and the biggest gift anyone can give you is their time. They can give you money. You can give somebody money, but you can earn that back.
Yeah.
But you can't earn back that time.
You know how many people still don't realize that though? Like I have these conversations with people all the time, and they just don't understand how precious time is, and how many people even, as people have kind of had to get used to a new normal in 2020 for themselves, aren't keeping up with their schedule very well, and will, because they're not in person, they feel like maybe the time that we spend like this together on Zoom isn't as important as time in person, or what have you. And I see people just not really understanding how important time is, and how it is finite, and it is really the most precious thing you can give to someone, because it's like you don't even know how long you're gonna have, to be
Yeah.
able to have that with people. Well, I would love for you to share with everybody, if someone's watching that is really, having a hard time setting those boundaries with themselves, setting boundaries with other people, what do you suggest that they do to start creating that? Because it takes a while. It takes a while to really learn yourself and learn to create those boundaries. But how can they today, what's something that they can do to get them on the right path to being more mindful of their boundaries?
It depends on the situation. There are so many different scenarios we can go here when it comes to setting boundaries. The most common that I notice with a lot of people would be saying no to favors or commitments or social gatherings and all that. I think we need to get rid of the fear of disappointing people. And I don't mean that in a harsh way, but it's about being realistic and taking a step back. If the tables were turned, and let's say you asked a friend for a favor or like assistance with something, or you invited them to a party, and they said, "Hey, Jessica, sorry, but I'm really busy." How catastrophic would that be? Would you really hold it against them? No? Right.
Oh.
So why are we catastrophizing all these different scenarios when we know that, it's not that big of a deal? Because, why can't we just put ourselves in other people's shoes, turn things around? Most people really are very, very understanding.
Right.
Very understanding. Let's get that out of the door first. Most people are very understanding. They're very reasonable. Okay, work scenario. Let's say, for example, somebody is asking you to take care of a task, which isn't technically, well, first of all, you got to ask yourself, let's be real, is it my responsibility? Is it my duty? If the answer to those two questions are no, then that falls under the favor category. If it falls under the favor category, ask yourself the next question. Is this project or is this task the person's responsibility? Number one, is it their responsibility? And number two, should they be capable of doing it themselves? Because they might be capable of doing it themselves, but they just don't want to. So they're hoping you'll do it and say, hey, you're really good at this. Maybe you can do it. You're the best at this thing. Watch out for flattery. Watch out for flattery. Now, if that's the case, it's a reality check. Make note of those situations. And if it's really their responsibility, don't take it. Because the more you do that, the more they're going to see. If you give them an inch, they might take a mile.
Right.
So don't let that happen. Jessica, you can't completely take it on yourself. Otherwise, you're just taking a load. If people want something, it's got to cost them. Is that as a creative, and this is a point I want to make to creatives who are listening out there. As a creative, or generally as a person, overall, you teach people how to treat you and how to value you, and how to treat you and how to value your time and what you bring to the table. So there has to be an exchange of something. So if you're willing to, let's say, give into a request or do something for someone, and it has nothing to do with any of your own projects, and you have to set aside your own things to give into this request, it should cost them, and they should be even more invested in that task than you are, because that is a task that's going to benefit them, not you.
Right.
So they should be invested in that. So now once you say, okay, I can help you out with that. I need you to submit task A to me. And as soon as if you can submit task A to me by this deadline, I can get started on task B. And it's a win.
Yeah.
Because now you're not taking the whole load. And now they know they have to invest their own time in it for you to be able to do the thing that they're requesting.
Right.
Because your task is dependent on them completing the first task.
Yeah.
So if they don't submit it, then you're off the hook.
Yeah.
You're off the hook, because if they don't submit by that deadline during the time frame in which you are free, then they've just lost their spot in your schedule. And it's on them.
Yeah, I think it's such a good lesson for entrepreneurs, for coaches. I know a lot of people that watch the show are in the coaching realm as well. And we see this all the time when we do, free webinars or, different programs and stuff like that. If someone's not invested in that in some kind of way, they don't get results. And then when they don't get results, they don't refer you. And when they don't refer you, you're not happy. And it goes around and around and around. And so I think that there's a underlying message there of investment being important when we're talking about working with other people and not taking too much on ourselves, and just it's a good relationship lesson, period. Whatever kind of relationship you're in, work relationship with someone too. Michelle, I know that you're an amazing artist, and I want to make sure that everybody knows where they can find you and all of that, but tell everybody really quickly what type of art you do and what you're really passionate about.
Oh, I love creating symbolic art. I also do portraiture. I love painting people's essence and their souls and reflecting that in the portrait pieces. But I also do landscapes and abstract work. And I also do a lot of stuff that's heavily symbolic, inspired by ancient mythology, symbolism, and ancient history. There's just something in there that there's just something in symbols and the language of color that connects everyone across cultures. And it's a universal language that I'm really passionate about.
Yes, absolutely. Well, make sure that you guys check out. We're going to have some links down in the show notes, but tell everybody what's the best place that they can find you, Michelle.
They can find me on Instagram at Michelle Shermaine, MichelleChermaine. A lot of people get the Shermaine part wrong because it's actually with an E. Or they can also find me on my Facebook page, Michelle Shermaine Art. Don't forget the arts part.
Yes, absolutely. And those links, like I said, will be down in the show notes for you guys. Michelle, thank you so much for being here with me today. This was an amazing conversation. My entire page is full of little notes and golden nuggets that we everybody can take away. And I really appreciate your candid stories and sharing all of this with us today.
Thank you so much, Jessica. You're such a gem, and I really appreciate your time today and your insight and all your lovely stories that you're sharing with all your viewers.
Absolutely. So you guys make sure, like I said, you check out the show notes, and we'll be back in just a minute for more of the Breakthrough Show. Breakthroughs are about more than you might think. They're about discovering who you are, digging deep, reaching to the core of your soul. They're about healing yourself, understanding your beliefs, creating a ripple effect. And it's not just those initial moments that matter. It's about using them to bring more joy into our own lives and the lives of others. It's about having fun, letting loose, enjoying every moment life has to offer. It's about finding a safe space. It's about creating connection. Join us each and every month for exclusive programming, where we invite you to go beyond the breakthrough. So we ask you, are you ready? We'll see you online at thebreakthroughshow.com. Welcome back to the Breakthrough Show. I want to give a big thank you to my special guest today, Michelle Ramos. Thank you so much for being here. We are back now with our new friend, Ted Yoder, not in the orchard, but still at his instrument nonetheless. And we're so thankful that you're here today. So you are going to do a song for us next called Figure Eights. Can you tell us a little bit about that song?
Yes, it's off of our brand new album that we did in the middle of a pandemic in 2020. The album is called Shadow Light. And our main goal was to make a winter holiday album, not necessarily a Christmas album, just celebrating things that we remember and have nostalgia of in the winter holidays. And so Figure Eights was born out of just this kind of, if Peanuts were ice skating in Central Park. So that was the vision of this song. So it's kind of whimsical, but kind of romantic at the same time.
Awesome. All right, you guys. Well, here to perform Figure Eights again is Ted Yoder. love it. What a perfect song for on the heels of our conversation that we had at the beginning of the show, because it feels like that energy of being so happy, yet also kind of emotional because you don't want to let that moment go.
Yeah, we are making plans to record album number 4. Shadowlight was number 3. And we're really anxious. I have something that's really interesting. I don't know of anybody else in the world that has it. I have an electric hammer dulcimer that a friend of mine made me. And
Wow.
so it's made to hook up to an effects box and to play through guitar effects and that kind of stuff. And I was just messing with it last night and playing around, and I recorded like 4 or 5, short things of just me noodling around. And that will probably make its appearance on album number 4.
Oh,
so
how
we're
fun.
really looking forward to that.
That's exciting. I love playing around with new things like that and seeing other people experiment as well. Different. So I'm excited. I'm excited for album 4. Put it out now. I want to hear the other.
We're still going to be mostly acoustic instruments.
Yeah.
So I don't want anybody to freak out, but it's not like I'm going to come out and start playing Back in Black on a hammer.
Come on. Okay, I have a question for you though that I've only asked so far to singers that have been on the show, but so I thought it might be fun to ask someone who's an instrumentalist, and that's that if somebody came along and said, Ted, we're going to make an album with you and you get to pick whatever 3 people you want to duet with on the album, go.
Can I have my band, but just with special guests?
Yes.
Okay. Because I don't want to leave Doug and Sarah or Toby out of it.
Absolutely. You can just, who do you want to collaborate with?
Who do I want to collaborate with? I actually would have to say Jake Shimabukuro, because I think ukulele would just do some amazing stuff. He's got a guitar player named Dave Preston, who's a phenomenal guitar player. I think Yo-Yo Ma would be the third one. But of course, if Bela Fleck called me and wanted to be part of the project, I wouldn't turn him down either. So just putting that out there. Bela, if you see this, get a hold of me.
Gotcha. It's a hard question though, because we think about like, I love so many different types of music. I can listen to like, Pavarotti and in the morning and Tupac in the evening, I love so many different types of music. And so it would be hard for me to choose. So that's why I ask the hard questions to everybody else.
That is a hard question. That might not be a bad name for a song, Tupac in the Evening. I'm just saying.
Kind of the follow up to Amarillo by Morning. Oh my gosh. Well, this has been so fun, Ted. I am going to definitely put all your information in the show notes, and anybody can always go to thebreakthroughshow.com to connect with Ted, buy his music, listen to his music, and of course the band as well. And you're just, I love your energy. I love what you're doing in the world. And thank you for bringing such an incredible instrument to new life, if you will, to people who maybe didn't know or had, it's new for people. So thank you so much for everything you're doing, Ted. This has been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, you guys, this has been such an amazing show. I want to give a big thank you to our guest today, Michelle Ramos, and also, of course, Ted Yoder. I want to thank all of you for watching or listening wherever you are in the world. I'm your host, Jessica Dugas, and until next week, I want to remind you to make every day a great day for a breakthrough. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Breakthrough. Please visit our website at www.thebreakthroughshow.com and be sure to join our